Nari, what distinguishes Indian film from any other film?
Nothing. I think Indian films and American films are more or less the same, depending on the category they are appealing to. If, like some foreigners think that Indian films are trash, which sell, I think that there are a lot of American films that sell that are total trash. The biggest sellers in America for the last year have been Rambo. If you don't call that trash, I don't know what you call trash.
And to counter that, I'd say a lot of big sellers in the United States in the last couple of years have included movies like Platoon, which spoke quite frankly about the war in Vietnam.
We have had our type of those films. We have a film called Adi Satya, which is a realistic film, which is a big commercial success. We had a film called Mirch Masala, made by Ketan Mehta, who's a well-known director. We've had our films of that type also. But let's face it, out of every 20 films which are commercial successes, you have one of these coming out. And there have been films like this throughout, Indian industry. I think it's very close to the American industry. There isn't much difference in the film industry in any part of the world. You appeal to the lowest common denominator. And if you're appealing to the masses, you appeal to the lowest common denominator. It's once in a while that a film comes which has what we call over here, put a tag on and call it an art film, and what you call in America a well-made film, or the film that the New York Times critic likes, and you call it a great film, which makes the film, also accepted and said, fine, this is okay. But I don't think when it comes down to proportion of films that are made, there are any more or bad that are made that are worse or bad over here compared to what is made in America or in the UK or even a place like Russia, which is today making, a remake of Bond 707 or whatever it is to counteract something that the Americans made about the Vietnam War.
Would that would suggest that if the masses, if to reach the lowest common denominator, to reach the masses, equates to producing trash films, what does that say about the masses?
Well, it says about the same about the masses all over the world. I mean, I'm not saying they're trash. I'm just saying that they are films that appeal to the lowest common denominator. Today, the American wants the kind of film which says, we won the Vietnam War in spite of having lost it. So you make a film where you've got, 5 guys going out and killing off 5,000 Vietnamese and coming back, and everybody sits there and applauds. Well, you have one person going, not even 5 guys. And, he single-handedly, he kills off, 1,000 Vietnamese soldiers. And you accept it. The masses accept it. Variety lists is right on top of the list. We have our films like that. We've got our Amitabh Bachchan in a film as such, and he produces a film where he alone single-handedly fights, 5,000 guys also. And he's a big success. He's larger than life. It's the case throughout the world. And even it's the case in Russia. Forget about America. Their biggest success, I don't know the name of the film, but I know the biggest success was a film that they made in retaliation to Rambo, which was a tremendous success in the communist countries. And it was him taking on the CIA and the American president and the American president's army and everybody else.
Bertolt Brecht said, "Woe to the nation that needs a hero." So are we all in bad shape? I mean, what does this say about our society if we have to worship people who, first of all, are generally not real? Secondly, have a position in a film which is realer than life, has nothing to do with the mainstream of society, nothing to do with the life of the person who goes to the movie. And the great majority of the films that succeed, in America, I'll grant you that, and in India, are generally junk.
I wouldn't call them junk. I think that if the masses want to go to a film to escape reality, whether it's in the Midwest in America or whether it's in what we call a Chopra party, what I'll explain to you as a hutment in India, they have an absolute right to. What's wrong with that? Not everybody lives in sheer luxury all the time so they can afford to sit down and, it's only when you're living in what we call over here air-conditioned 5-star luxury that you can afford to go down to a movie house and say, Christ, I appreciate the guy, dying today, and his wife dying as well. If a guy is getting out of a hutment and he's going to a movie, he wants to escape, he wants to have fantasy. What's wrong with that? Is there anything wrong with it? I don't think so. It's well made, it's well produced, it's well crafted. He's got 3 hours of sheer entertainment where he loves every part of it. He's got the songs, he's got the dances. He believes in everything he's seeing over there. He goes back to his miserable howl in any case. So what do you want to do? Give him more of that when he's spending his money for those 3 hours? I don't think it makes sense. I don't think there's anything wrong with it in the first place.
Okay, this doesn't necessarily relate to anything to do with commercial success, because what you just said does. But what about the use of film as a social motivator? The use of film to animate a society or a community of people to changing their life for something better. I mean, it doesn't make a big buck, but whatever happened to it? Does it happen? Do you make films like that?
I do make films like that. I make films to make a buck. Sorry, let me go back. I make films to make a buck. I'm not in social service. If I was, I'd run an orphanage or something like that. But there are filmmakers who have made films in India which are meant as a social service. This one success I was talking about, this Adi Satya, which was a commercial success, was meant as an exposure of the corruption of the police force. There have been umpteen films like that made in India, accepted that they are not commercial successes, but they're not supposed to be commercial successes. They're not expected to be commercial successes. We have a parallel film running at the moment, which has got known set directors who work within that milieu of that kind of film as such, just like you have in America, just like you have in the Scandinavian countries, just as you have in England, just as you have in practically every part of the world, who make films for their own satisfaction, not for the satisfaction of the audience. If they get a hit, they're lucky. But if they don't, they go around with a begging bowl asking for more money for the next film. And we have an institute called the National Film Development Corporation, which is known as the NFDC, which does finance these type of films, which are known losers.
So why produce them? What's the point?
The point is it's a social service.
But the films that really make the big buck
Are the fantasies.
are the fantasies.
Sure.
But you wouldn't call those trash.
Certainly not.
Are they all the same?
Are they all the same meaning?
Generally the same sort of storyline, boy meets girl, father
No,
of the
no,
girl
not
doesn't
at all,
like
not
the
at all.
boy,
The
there's a
success is
villain.
that boy meet girl stage is a stage that we passed long ago. Just like Hollywood in the 50s was, pillow talk with Rock Hudson and Doris Day. We passed that stage long ago, Doris Day was protecting her virginity, for years, and the Americans lapped it up. We've passed that stage right now. We're no longer in that stage as such. Boy meets girl doesn't work anymore, and, there's a villain running around the trees. Sure, you have some of them being produced. But most of them now, a lot depends on the scripts. We have script writers being paid the kind of fees which were never paid in the last 10 years. They command a price. Today you have names like Salim, Javed, etc., etc. I don't know all the names, but they are paid extremely well. We have directors who are paid extremely well. They're treated as important, if not more important than the stars. There are directors at the moment who can command the biggest stars to come at a price that they want, purely because they're known as good filmmakers.
A lot of the people I've interviewed in the last week, not that I discount or not that I challenge what you're saying specifically, but the people I've interviewed say they'll walk into a film, maybe the third or fourth that they've done in that week. They'll get their lines, having never seen it before, not knowing the plot of the story, playing their role, and finding that it's easy to succeed in playing that role simply because it's so similar to the 3 or 4 other films that they're acting in. And you take a look at the broad view of that, 800 or 900 films are produced every year in India.
All right, I'll tell you.
How do you respond to that?
I'll tell you. The one problem is that Indian actors and actresses are very apologetic about what they're doing. They have no reason to be. They just have this thing in them. They may do 4 or 5 films and they're doing a shift system which sounds crazy to the Western mind or the way the Western people think. But they give some of the best performances. I have sat in America with critics who have watched some of our dance performances which we consider mediocre, who have turned on and said that we cannot believe that this is the kind of movements they give, this is the kind of music they give. And I'm talking of someone who's the #1 of BBC, the #1 of ABC, people who count in the business as such, who honestly feel that if John Travolta spent a year under Sylvester Stallone training for, I forget the name of the movie, Easy Something or the Other, what was it? It flopped. A year, and that's what he could produce. And what we produce turns out to be so good because, and sure, they work in 6 systems as such, in 6 different movies as such, but they may learn their lines at the last minute, but they have become very, very good performers. And I think that the Indian actors and actresses are some of the most excellent performers that are available today in the world. Unfortunately, our system doesn't allow them to act as well as they could. Considering the limited circumstances and the limited way they have to work, you have some of the best performances coming out from here. And one day I think they're going to make their mark on the international scene, and it's around the corner.
So the question being essentially, for Indian films to improve, as you say, they will get better, is it necessary for an actor to have that, to remove the constraint so that they can perform in one film instead of 6 in a week?
Look, I'll try to make this as short as possible. At the initial stages when an actor gets into the industry and he's making a name for himself, like all audiences throughout the world, they're very unpredictable. So he ends up signing as much as he possibly can in order to get his product across. Normally, and that has happened most of the time, once an actor has established himself and reached a certain level, he starts picking and choosing. He no longer goes and signs 50 films or 60 films. He cuts it down to maybe 4, 5, 6, 7. And this has happened to all our top actors who are there right now. It doesn't happen in the initial stages because at that stage you don't know which one's getting completed and which one isn't getting completed because finances is a very different situation than it is in America. There are no big companies like 20th Century or Universal saying, okay, fine, here's the money. we underwrite it, bring the film to us. It is as it's being shot, you keep collecting money from distributors. So because our financial system is different, the younger actors, or the ones who are just getting into the industry, sign films at random so that they're sure that something is coming out, and out of 50 films, if one is a hit, they know they're made. They reach a second stage where they cut down their assignments, and a third stage finally, like you've got people like Amitabh Bachchan or Vinod Khanna or XYZ, all the top guys, Anil Kapoor, all of them who sign not more than 6, 7, maximum 8 films at a time. So it is not a run-of-the-mill rule which is, applies to all of them. It's a fallacy to think that all of them have got 50 films or 60 films. They can have them, but they pick the right director, the right producer, the right script writer, because every success then counts to them once they've reached a certain level.
But 6, 7, or 8 films at a time would suggest that they're going to do 6, 7, or 8 performances within the space of maybe a couple of months.
No, this is where you've got it all wrong. A normal Hindi film takes about a couple of years to get completed. It doesn't take 6, 7, or a couple of months. It takes a couple of years. And the reason for that is a few reels are shot. After those reels are shot, the finance is collected. Then the next few reels are shot, and it goes on like that.
Could you just, in summing up, describe what are the factors or what are the qualities of an Indian film that makes it what it is and so appealing to the Indian people, the Indian viewers, Indian moviegoers?
I'll repeat something I said earlier. A, it's larger than life. B, it has to have good music. 3, there has to be action. And 4, there has to be emotion. All rolled into one in one film. Those are supposed to be the ingredients of success. But if anybody could predict what makes a film successful, I wouldn't be talking to you. I would be a multi-billionaire.
You direct films. Who do you style?
I don't direct them. I produce them.
You produce films. Who do you like to style yourself after in terms of film
Myself.
producers?
I don't think I'd like to style myself over anybody.
Do you like any American film producers?
Yes, I do. A lot of them.
Like who?
Well, not necessarily American alone. I like Roman Polanski. I like Steven Spielberg. I like the whole George Lucas. I like a lot of producers. I like the different styles. I even like Sylvester Stallone in Rambo. Okay? He serves a purpose. I go there with that particular idea. I may not like Rambo, but I'm going there expecting Sylvester Stallone to do his bit, and I don't think he's done his bit. Like I saw Cobra, I didn't like it. I didn't like it because of High and Mighty. I just didn't like it, but I didn't think he did a good enough job in that context that I saw him in. So when I see a Hindi film, I also look at it in that same context. Look, they're appealing to this kind of people. This is the kind of audience they're reaching out to. Have they achieved what they're trying to achieve within that milieu as such? And when they don't, yes, it's a disappointment.
Good. Thank you.